You know, when we think of Hans Christian Andersen, our minds immediately go to mermaids, ugly ducklings, emperors with no clothes, all those classic tales. But what if I told you that the most incredible, most triumphant fairy tale he ever crafted wasn't one he wrote down? What if it was the story of his own life? So today, let's dive into that story, a life that was maybe his greatest work of art. And hey, don't just take my word for it. He wrote these exact words himself in his autobiography. It's a really bold statement, right? Especially when you find out where he came from. But for Andersen, this wasn't just some nice phrase. It was his core belief, the thing that shaped his entire world. It's like a golden thread running through his whole life, and it's really the central theme we're going to explore here. So let's look at his life, not just as a straight-up biography, but as the epic tale he truly believed it to be. You know, a story with heroes, villains, some absolutely crushing defeats, and, of course, a powerful moral at the very end. Now, this is so key to understanding him. Andersen saw every single challenge, every setback, not as a failure, but as a necessary chapter in a bigger, divine plan. He literally wrote that even from evil came good, from pain came joy. This idea is the magic key that unlocks everything about him, his life and his stories. It's how a lonely tin soldier can find a purpose, and it's how an outcast little duckling discovers its true, magnificent self. Every great story needs a humble beginning, right? Well, Andersen's is about as humble as it gets. Our hero's journey kicks off in this small, provincial town of Odense, Denmark, way back in the early 1800s. So, picture this. He was born in 1805 to a poor shoemaker and a washerwoman. By the time he was just 2 years old, his entire family was crammed into a single room with 11 other people. Can you imagine? Then, his father died in 1816, and real grinding poverty set in. So in 1819, at just 14 years old, he makes this wild decision that will change everything. He's going to the capital, Copenhagen, to become famous. And we're not talking about some well-thought-out plan here. Nope. This was a desperate, incredibly audacious leap of faith, completely driven by this young boy's unshakable belief in his own destiny. He gets to the big city with just 13 Rigsdaler in his pocket. To give you some perspective, that was basically nothing, barely enough to survive for a few weeks. It was a true all-or-nothing gamble. And at first, it really seemed like he was going to lose that bet. He tried to get singing lessons, but then his voice changed. He tried ballet school, but they said he was too awkward and clumsy. He poured his soul into writing plays, but the Royal Theatre rejected his first one in 1821, and his second one, Alfsol, just a year later. I mean, door after door just kept slamming shut in his face. But then, you know how in every fairy tale there's that one person who sees something special in the hero? That moment happened for him. A director at the theater, a guy named Knud Line Rebeck, looked right past all the awkwardness and the failures. He saw a spark, what he called hidden talents that just needed the right kind of help to really shine. And that one little spark of recognition set off this incredible chain of events. Rebeck's colleague Jonas Collin took up Andersen's cause and went straight to the top. He petitioned the king himself, and amazingly, King Frederick VI actually agreed. He granted a royal scholarship for this poor boy's education. So at 17, the shoemaker's son was suddenly sent to a prestigious grammar school. His entire future was just rewritten. Okay, so this was it. This was the turning point. With a real education and the support of some pretty powerful people, Andersen finally had the tools he needed to turn those hidden talents into timeless art. The year 1835 was huge. This is when it all came together. He published his first really successful novel, The Improvisatore, and, almost as an afterthought, he put out this small collection of fairy tales told for children. Little did he or anyone know that that tiny book was about to change world literature forever. And this was just the beginning of an absolutely legendary career. Stories like The Little Mermaid, this incredible tale of longing for another world, and The Emperor's New Clothes, a brilliant critique of vanity, they just poured out of him. And of course, The Ugly Duckling, which is probably his most personal story. It became this universal anthem for anyone who's ever felt like an outsider. His work, born from his own struggle, is now translated into over 100 languages. But here's the thing. Even at the height of all his fame, he was still this peculiar figure.
An American traveler in 1862 described him in such vivid detail as this tall, gaunt man with a big, crooked nose and these huge cheekbones. It's just a powerful reminder that the man who wrote The Ugly Duckling probably felt like one his entire life.
So what does all this mean for us today? What's the moral of Hans Christian Andersen's story? I think it goes so much deeper than just the books he wrote. His life teaches us, first off, to embrace what makes us different, right? Just like the ugly duckling becomes a beautiful swan. It shows us that pure perseverance, especially when you're facing rejection, can completely define your destiny. He taught us to see these huge, universal truths in the most simple, everyday things. A tin soldier, a pea, a little matchstick. And maybe most importantly, he showed us that we are all co-authors of our own life story, and that even from pain, the most incredible joy can grow. This profound belief he had in purpose and eternity is just perfectly captured in the 4 lines he chose for his own gravestone. It's like his final, powerful statement. He was a man who really saw his life as the seed for something eternal, a story that would never, ever truly end. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. Andersen believed his life was a beautiful fairy tale, guided by a loving hand. So it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? If your life is a story, what's its moral?